Hello and welcome. Today we read In the Prison of Repose, which is a collection of diaries of Paulo Coelho. Very quickly, Paulo Coelho is a Brazilian author, very famous. He's mostly famous for best-selling works, which are supposed to be, the most famous works across languages, particularly The Alchemist. Paulo Coelho was born in 1947, and his writings are also known to have a spiritual flavor, and very often he talks about the power of desire, the power of human will. So his work is also very inspiring, and if you want to read something inspiring, Paulo Coelho's work would be one such option. Now, in The Prison of Repose, it was published. It's a thing that he's written in. These are diaries that he had written in 1966, 1967, 1968. And in the beginning, he says that he was admitted to a psychiatric hospital, and his medical diagnosis was that he was antisocial, he was rebellious, he was incapable of obeying his parents. And so, although he wants to write about the freedom of expression, he says that I would prefer to transcribe these extracts to talk about the necessity of the freedom of expression. Now, I want you to notice something. Paulo Coelho was born in 1947, and he's written these diaries in 66, 67, 68, which means that he was 19, 20, 21 years old, which is very, very young. Now, we notice two things. One, at the age of 19, he's being imprisoned, he's being hospitalized to be antisocial, to be rebellious, and to be incapable of obeying parents. Now, these, strictly speaking, these could not be considered to be mental disorders, but he was still put in a psychiatric ward to heal, right? So it brings to fore many issues about mental health, many issues about wrongful hospitalization of what powerful people may think is mental illness, and the politics associated with it. But more than that, in this particular collection, he's talking about the trauma that he faced while being in this psychiatric ward. So he is talking about the freedom of expression, and he talks about how he's simply jailed for being himself. And I would really recommend some of his interviews. He's given great interviews to Oprah Winfrey, and if you are known to Indian interviews, he's also given a very nice interview to Shekhar Gupta, and which is Walk the Talk, is one of the famous series of interviews in India. So and he talks about how in his young days his parents were actually concerned. So here's the parents' concern of, and the reason why he was put into the psychiatric ward was not enmity with him, was not this hatred for him, but just, their deep fear for him. And he's growing up in a dictatorial regime. He's being brought up in Brazil, which is being led by a dictator. And the parents have little hope that he would be a successful author, where he had a strong desire to be a writer. He wanted to pursue writing, but the parents felt that he will not be able to be successful, he will not be able to make money. So a part of this so-called rebellion in him is just the fact that he is insisting that he wants to pursue writing as a career, he wants to do what he likes, but his parents feel that he should be cured of such behavior. So the story is in the form of diary entries, as I told you, and one by one we see how this imprisonment is making him more and more lonely, more and more isolated, and finally it is breaking him down. So you need to be observant of the kind of language that he's using in the early diary entries and in the late diary entries. There's a change in the tone, there's a change in the kind of things that he's writing about. In the beginning, he's also observing other people. Towards the end, he's so tired, he's so dejected that he doesn't want to live a life at all. He's absolutely hopeless towards the end of these diary entries. Now, I'm reading a part of the early diary entry, and I quote, I was talking to a young man who has been here for 2 years now. I told him I couldn't bear it and wanted to get out. He said, in all sincerity, it's great here. You don't have to worry about anything. Why struggle? Deep down, nobody cares about anything anyway. I felt afraid that I might start thinking like him. I now feel real anguish, the anguish of not knowing when I will stop seeing the world through bars. And eventually, ironically, we actually see him see the world through bars, getting normalized with the idea that he is going to stay there. However, we see steadily that the hospital is also breaking him down. He is allowed to meet other people. He's not allowed to meet other people or to go out. He's longing to meet people. He's not able to do that, and that's also crumbling him. And the rest of the story gives small anecdotes about other people. He observes the patients around him. Somebody is crying, somebody is just joking, somebody is a funny person, and so he is able to spend time. Sometimes he says that he's not having a very, very bad time, but he's very, very lonely, and he's sleeping to pass his time. But even in these difficult days, he is writing. But it's very difficult for him, and even though he is able to write, he's managing to write very well. And he also mentioned that he wins an award. He wins a recognition for his writing. And as I just said before, we see him slowly become just as how he was fearing that he will become. He's becoming more pliant. He suddenly starts listening to the nurse. He does not protest. And that makes him think that this is a sign of real danger, as he has actually lost the willpower to resist, and he's not angry anymore, meaning that he's slowly surrendering. So initially it begins with him being angry, but slowly he realizes that anger is not leading to any change, and slowly he stops being angry. But that loss of anger, that it itself means that he is now slowly giving up on life itself. And towards the end, we also have a small description of an encounter with a doctor who is just arguing with him. And in this particular anecdote, you would feel sympathy for Paulo Coelho, who is the patient and who's so helpless in front of the author. Now, Coelho says, what did I say wrong? He's asking the doctor, and the doctor says, what did you say wrong? You spend your whole time creating an image of yourself, a false image, not even noticing that you're failing to make the most of what's inside you. You're a nothing. And Paulo responds, he says, I know. Anything I say is pure self-defense. In my own eyes, I am worthless. And then the doctor replies, he says, then do something. But you can't. You're perfectly happy with the way things are. You've got used to the situation. Look, if the things go on like this, I'm going to forget my responsibilities as a doctor and call in a medical team to give you electroconvulsive therapy, insulin, glucose, anything to make you forget and make you more biddable. But I'm going to give you a bit more time. Come on, be a man, pull yourself together. Now, in this exchange between the doctor and this patient, we see that the doctor is clearly misusing his power. He's saying very clearly, he's saying that I will forget my duties and I will give you electroconvulsive therapy, which is actually shock therapy, insulin, glucose, everything that will be painful for him and everything that will make him lose a part of his identity. So the doctor wants to make him forget a part of his identity. The doctor wants to make him suffer, right? And we see that it is almost like this is a kind of egocentric doctor who just wants to teach him a lesson irrespective of his duty as a medical practitioner. And here the one thing which is very, very relevant to this exchange is Foucault's ideas about mental illness and knowledge and power. So I want you to at least just pay attention to the deeper meaning of this exchange. To people who do not know who Michel Foucault was a French philosopher who talks about the history of madness, and he talks about how the idea of madness and the medical diagnosis of madness has been evolving. So he says that what was madness, what was targeted as madness before, we are slowly changing the way we are understanding it, right? And the whole diagnosis of calling one person mad and another person normal is very, very debatable, right? And in another work, he talks about the interrelationship between power and knowledge. And this relationship of power and knowledge is very, very important for this story and for any other analysis you would do, where you see a very clear relationship between power and knowledge. And according to Foucault, power is based in knowledge and it makes use of knowledge, and on the other hand, power reproduces knowledge by shaping it in accordance with its intentions, which means that here in this case, in this particular case, the doctor is powerful, right? The doctor is powerful on the basis of this knowledge by virtue of his medical knowledge, but on the other hand, he's also reproducing knowledge in a way. He has the authority to say from a very powerful position that the patient is nothing. The fact that he says that you are nothing, you have a false image, right? He is able to use his knowledge to just overpower a person who does not have that kind of sanctioned knowledge. And this is how in societies knowledge is misused. Now, with the help of Foucault stories, if we see and notice not only the doctor and how the doctor is using the power over him, we also see how the parents, have used their power over him, right? And the doctor is actually literally threatening to use electroconvulsive therapy on this patient, which is now very, very controversial, which is very painful, which is wrong, which is unfair to the person it is being used on. So these are the deeper layers which you can dabble in when you discuss this story. Now the diary ends on a very grim note where he's feeling that he's lost a part of his identity with all this imprisonment. And I quote, "Here ends me, with no messages to send, nothing, no desire to win, a desire that had its guts ripped out by human hatred. It was good to feel this, total defeat. Now let's start all over again." So he mentions that, it's not any mental disease, it's not any mental diagnosis behind his treatment. He's just being punished for being, for choosing to be what he wants to be, and he's being targeted because of human hatred. So this is where the diary ends, but once the diaries end, we are told that after these diaries were published, now Coelho became a sensation. He's a very, very well-known author. His works have been translated to so many languages. He is actually a very well-known person for Brazil. He wins a lot of accolades for Brazil as country. And when these diaries were published, it caught the attention of the authorities in Brazil, and they were able to make significant laws against arbitrary hospitalization of patients in Brazil. So this is what we get to know once the diaries are over. So this is what my analysis of this anecdote is. Please let me know how you liked In the Prison of Repose. Do let me know if you like my analysis. I see you in another video, and I'll do analysis of a different story. Thank you.